Good morning, another beautiful Saturday. Welcome to the Step Up Talk. My name is Anne Wafula, your moderator for the session. And today we want to dig deeper into the aspect of confusion. We want to look at confusion, but from a medical perspective. And with us in studio, we have experts who are going to introduce themselves. And with our passionate teacher, who is also going to bring a perspective from the classroom setup. So karibuni sana. Collins, we can start with you introducing yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Collins, a teacher by passion, first of all, and then profession. And I'm happy to be here today to discuss confusion part 2, going deep into the topic. Karibuni sana.
Okay, thank you. Alex, we'll come to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Kiraive. I'm happy to be with you this morning. I'm a counseling psychologist, stroke addictions counselor at the District Ngong, the Rehabilitation Center. And I'm happy to be able to come here and discuss confusion from a medical and psychological perspective.
Okay, thank you so much. And karibu, Alex. Rachel, welcome again to the show. Can just introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Anne. My name is Rachel Mena, and I'm very glad to be here. I hope to be of service in demystifying confusion when it comes to the medical field. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, to kick us off, let us just have an understanding of confusion, but this time round, as opposed to last week, we want to look at confusion from a medical perspective. Rachel, how would you define confusion within that context?
Thank you so much, Anne. So confusion is where someone does things or says things or perceives things differently from what is norm or what is reality. Someone can seem absent-minded, someone can have some behavioral changes that are not in keeping with what they usually do. And also cognitively, they may think of things or say things that are not in keeping with what is norm. And that's when someone can be confused. From the medical part, it's very important to know that we can't label someone as confused or having a certain medical illness just because they have confusion symptoms. Want to have a medical diagnosis and be told like one of these is because of confusion, they have to have a set of symptoms that they exhibit for someone to be told that they have confusion. And this set can include things like memory loss, can include behavioral changes, maybe noting things that someone is doing that are not usual, or probably the way they're thinking doesn't sound reasonable or intellectual. And when someone exhibits that kind of symptoms, then they can be told to be that they are confused. So yeah, so there is a borderline between the medical and the societal, the normal confusion. And normal confusion is usual, it's normal, it's not something that is a disease.
Wow, thank you. Alex, would you want to add something to what Rachel has mentioned in terms of confusion in the medical perspective?
And nothing much to add apart from the issue of confusion as now basically as a symptom of another disorder. So basically disorientation, lack of in decision making, not being aware of where you are and stuff like that are just about symptoms. But as far as the definition is concerned, I think Rachel got it well.
Okay, then probably Collins, I want to rope you in here. There's something during the prep meeting you talked about in terms of anxiety and bipolar. Probably you can just put the question forward so that Rachel can help us contextualize that.
Yes, thank you very much, Anne. To Rachel, there's been a very sharp increase in the number of cases of teenagers. Let me talk about teenagers because I deal with kids from the ages of 12, 13, all the way to 19, IGCSE to A-level. And there is a very sharp increase in the number of students that are diagnosed with anxiety disorder and bipolar. What could be the main cause of this? Because you see, anxiety and bipolar have some relationship with confusion.
Thank you, Colin, for that. So, first of all, let me start by saying that, okay, there are symptoms that are related to bipolar, to anxiety, among other psychiatric disorders, and these symptoms can be said to be confusion symptoms. And let me reiterate that it takes a myriad of symptoms for someone to be told that they are anxious or they have bipolar. So just to pick up on some of the symptoms of confusion in each of those, like when someone has anxiety and they can be said to be confused is when they are restless, irritable, they have a very short attention span or concentration span, and actually those are the same symptoms for depression as well. For depression, you can have someone who has memory loss as well, concentration problems, they are restless, they are highly irritable, and these symptoms can be said to be symptoms of confusion that are in depression and anxiety. Bipolar, someone can have can also have high irritability. They might be doing things very fast and probably in a disorganized way, especially when they have like a psychotic symptom, like maybe schizophrenia. In schizo, they might be talking to themselves or seeing things that are not there or hearing things that are not there. Wanakuuliza, "Ujasikia venye nani amesema ama ujasikia nikiitwa?" And whatever they're saying, you can notice this person is confused. It is a symptom of schizophrenia, but we don't say that this someone has schizophrenia per se at that particular moment. So now that is contextualizing confusion within the psychiatric disorders that you mentioned, among others. Now, when it comes to the increase in anxiety, bipolar, among other psychiatric disorders, what you're finding out is that because of the changes in lifestyle and how it's affecting not only the adolescents but the youth, but everyone else in the country or in the world, the changes, people are not ready for that. Resilience level or coping level, people are not ready for that. People are not ready to not be going to school every day. People are not, adolescents are not ready to be having their parents telling them what to do and what not to do every time or being on their neck every time. They're not ready to probably not be in school or probably they can't think of anything away from reading books. And right now, like probably my nephew will tell me like, oh, kwa nini nisome sahi? Sitasoma the same thing next year, you know. So they really don't know anything else to do. And these changes, and these changes coupled with low resilience level and low support from the environment can make someone to have depression symptoms, can make someone to be anxious or to be very disoriented. So that's why we're having a very sharp increase in the rates of anxiety and depression. And let me say that the COVID-19 itself, the disease itself, well, because when it affects you, it lowers the immunity. And once immunity lowers, then you are even more susceptible to all these psychiatric disorders from a physical point of view, from what is going on inside your body. So that's why we are having a very high, sharp increase. Probably my colleague Alex can mention something about substance use in relation to the same.
Now, just before Alex comes on board, because basically now we've moved to the issue of causes, and probably now looking at some of the causes of confusion, we talked about, we mentioned the issue of drug use and drug abuse. So before probably we move to Alex, Rachel, you could talk about the drug use, the prescriptions, and some of the side effects that can actually cause confusion. And I don't know, but there's a lot of echo from your side. I don't know if there's a way you can. There's a bit of echo. We are not hearing you clearly.
How about now?
Yeah, that's better. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I had a really the volume was too high. So with regards to the medical courses, there are some drugs that can cause confusion, like symptoms, and that's why it's very important before we run forward and judge someone as being confused or having a certain psychiatric disorders. It's always good to observe and even ask some questions that may help us know exactly what's going on with this particular youth. We can have some psychiatric medication that cause disorientation the very first times. They can cause someone to be disoriented, someone not to probably think well, or probably do things that they do not usually do, and even memory loss, like diseases like and it's not just psychiatric medication, but also normal medication. Someone can be on HIV drugs, and some of the HIV drugs do cause memory loss. Like unatoka kwa nyumba ukifikiria umebeba simu, ukifika kwa stage unapata umebeba remote control instead of your phone. And it's very important to look at what are the drugs, and if you are not very sure whether these drugs can cause confusion symptoms, maybe it's someone in your house and they are on medication and you're not sure, you can always look at the pamphlet that is attached to the medication, or even Google and try to find out what are the common side effects for this kind of drugs. And once you find out, if you find out that medications in whichever form, whether psychiatric medication or any other medical or any other physical symptoms medication is causing confusion, it's always good to not just leave it and say like, in sababakon, clopixel, in sababuakon, any other medication. It's very important to find out, to get to the doctor and ask for probably a change in medication or probably dosage increment or decrease so that they can take care of that. So I won't go into details of exact medication, but the main point is that you find out if they are on medication. If they are, find out whether it can cause the kind of symptoms that they're having or what you're seeing in what they're doing.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Now, coming to you, Alex, just share with us some of the causes from a drug abuse perspective. And as you share some of those causes, then probably what are the associated symptom to whatever somebody would be seeing, so that we are able to differentiate just the kawaida confusion and a substance abuse related kind of confusion. Okay. Probably, Rachel, you can kick it off as he comes back on air. Rachel, your mic is mute. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was saying that Alex was indicating something like this, so I'm thinking probably he wasn't hearing anything. So how about let me first talk about how the brain operates, and then probably within that time, Alex will come in and talk about substance use.
Fantastic. Then when you talk about how the brain operates, then you can bring in the issue of trauma and brain damage.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Yes.
So here's the thing. So as we grow up from the time we are kids to the time we are adults, all this time, like we grow up with all our fingers, we grow up with all our eyes, from the time we are child, all our ears, our mouths. We grow up with all these features that we can see physically, but right within us, there are things that are growing. Yes, we can grow up when we are born with a heart that is functioning, and we think that everything else is okay. Now it's just increasing in size or any other thing. So, but the brain operates in a very different way in terms of how it grows. From the time it grows with very basic features that can help us see things, hear things, and perceive what is happening around us, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. A bad thing makes the kid cry, a good thing makes the kid laugh. So as the brain develops, it develops very other things it develops connections within it that help the brain to function better in terms of our thinking capacity, in terms of our reasoning capacity, and this goes on until for men when they are 25 years, that's when the brain matures. For women, when they are younger, that's when the brain matures. So what happens is that in the brain of a youth, the youth has developed, by the time they're around 15, 16 years, has developed a fully functional brain in terms of emotions, in terms of what they're able to think, in terms of whether to be happy about something, whether to engage in something that is very rewarding. But it hasn't developed to a point where they are able to make decisions, reason out things, and the growth is dependent on their environment as well. So as these connections are forming, and as the environment triggers certain connections within the brain so that they can be able to engage in activities of intellectual thinking, activities that involve abstract thinking, the environment as well helps in that growth. And the environment can help in either increasing that growth in terms of maturing or developing a very robust function, or the environment can lower that function. So what I mean is that, let's say, for example, the memory, like we have the memory center within the brain. And this memory center has to grow robustly in terms of function, in terms of being able to remember things, being able to keep something in memory. But depending on the environment, let's say the adolescent is exposed to so much stress within the environment, it corrodes that connection, that brain function of memorizing or remembering things. It corrodes or lowers the function of that particular part of the brain. So as it lowers that, then that means that the teenager won't function as well, because of the very stressful environment and because the brain is not supportive in terms of remembering things. So you'll find a parent saying that this child is very confused, or this child nilimwambia asubuhi afanye hii na leo jioni hajafanya hii, and probably it's because of the stress levels within that are making that brain center not to function very well. So like, it's very important to look at those, and because of the deterioration in the connections within certain brain functions, whether it's memory, whether it's probably the hippocampus that helps with mood stabilization. If it's corroded, then we have also psychiatric problems coming in. Like now, that's when depression comes in, schizophrenia. In any case, it's said like some of these psychiatric illnesses, and I think Collins will be very interested in this, is that some of these psychiatric illnesses have their very first symptoms, what we call prodromal symptoms. They are very first symptoms in adolescence. Like when someone is older, utamuuliza like hey, anakwambia like nowadays me amepata nikisahau, lakini if they try to remember very well when was the first symptom that came about, it's probably within this adolescent period, this youth period. That's why it's very important to protect the environment in which the youth grow, not necessarily kuwabeba kuwafanya kuwa watoto, but providing an environment that helps the brain function or helps the brain develop such robustness in functioning such that they don't have these problems later in life. So right now the child may seem confused, and you may think this is just something within them, but the environment is not that supportive of that brain function, or even developing a sense of not having confusion. So are there stress levels within? Are there like parents who are quarreling all the time within? Is there a lot of pressure from school, from the government to stay indoors and they don't want to? You know, all those stress levels, are they making the person to behave in a way that is in keeping with how they usually do things every now and then? So so all those symptoms of confusion can be a function of the brain with regards to how the brain is developing, and because it's still immature, it can either go down or go up depending on the environment, whether it's supportive or not. I think I've answered that. So now, with regards to apart from how the brain functions, with regards to trauma, in terms of probably concussion, like when we mean trauma in this case, it's in terms of like when you get a bump on the head, and that bump of the head is so hard that it affects the skull. It affects the skull, and when it affects the skull, it can cause a crack, something that we call like a concussion. And when that happens, then it affects how the brain functions in terms of like the connections have been disrupted. So someone may have, you can have someone who has slurred speech, like when they are talking or talk, and you know, that kind of sleep. or probably someone is talking things like the other way around, or they are not making a full sentence. They are talking like, and then it went, now you remember, and then I went, such kind of words that are not, they do not make sense. So slurred speech, there is that tangential thoughts in terms of like someone is speaking of things that are all over. So that kind of trauma can cause someone to seem like they are confused. So you see, it's very important not to take things at face value.
Wow, thank you. And just mentioning what you've mentioned, then we make so many assumptions. As a society, I think we make so many assumptions and we end up judging people wrongly without necessarily having an understanding of what they're going through. Now, before I come to you, Alex, Collins, do you have anything that you want to share at this particular moment, or we have Alex share from the drug abuse perspective first?
Okay, maybe just one thing that Rachel mentioned, and I felt it's key for the development of the youth. And she talked about how safe environment will lead to good brain development, and a bad environment will lead to a bad one. So this goes back to us teachers and parents at home. What kind of pressure are we applying? What pressure are we exerting? Is it the academic one? Is it the correct one? From home, is it the correct social pressure being applied? So I think it's time for us as the adults to check what we are doing, check the environment, and check what we are giving our youth, because we need to understand that in life it's always about garbage in, garbage out. If we give the good environment, we are going to get good, healthy adults. That is mentally, of course. I'm talking about the mental health. So that I felt really touched a nerve there. And thank you so much, Rachel. Back to you, Anne.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now, Alex, coming to you, looking at these in terms of some of the causes of confusion from a drug or a substance abuse perspective, what are some of the thoughts you'd want to share with us?
Okay. Good morning again. Yeah, about confusion and substance abuse, there is a lot to deal with there, because one of the things you need to know is that the people who abuse drugs have periods of blackouts. Those periods of blackout, the person is not aware of what they did, how they did it, or what happened, and what really happened after that. That's why you find that at times somebody is being told, we saw you, you are doing this, you are doing this, you are doing this, and that person totally has a blackout at that point of time. So confusion in terms of prolonged drug abuse, which usually happens maybe from alcohol, hallucinogens, and different types of drugs, these people lack awareness of what they are doing at specific times. There are times when they're just looking for the high, and once they've gotten on the high, they just want to add more and more and more. And whatever happens in their life at that time, they are not present. They're not present. Somebody could mistake it as Rachel was saying, that the person may have a mood disorder, that they're just out of moods, but this person is not aware where they are. They are just confused due to substance abuse. Different substances have different levels of symptoms of confusion. Hallucinogen, the person hallucinates, sees things that are not there. Okay? And this can make them agitated, really agitated. They can be attacking people for no apparent reason, because you've met with somebody, they're looking at the person, they're seeing a huge monster. They have to defend themselves. They're attacking a person who's innocent because they're hallucinating. They're not seeing the reality. They're in their own world because of substance use. So when they be told the next day, what, they just say, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. We found you with your shirt out. That's not me, that's not me. You knocked at the neighbor's door instead of going to your house. That's not me, that's not me. Meaning that the person is not currently aware of what they're doing or where they are. Substance use at times causes confusion due to the fact that they change the the body chemistry. The brain can start shrinking. Once it shrinks to a certain size, it becomes that it cannot do its normal function. Some parts of the brain have been damaged, not from a concussion, but from the fact that somebody has prolonged drug use. So this person has a point of indecision. They cannot make decisions. They are not aware of their present state until maybe they sober up, and it gets to a point on heavy drug use whereby the person cannot come back, because immediately he gets off the substance, or the substance goes down below the level, they start getting serious withdrawals, so they have to do anything they can have to do in order to get back the high, so that they can seem, the high is their new normal. Normal is no longer there. So confusion, how we meet a lot, we meet a lot of it in our field, is that you can actually, the person is brought to the rehabilitation center. As we know, this is confusion, and it's because of substance use. And even the other people who are in rehabilitation are saying, no, this person should not be here. He's not behaving like an addict. He's behaving like something else, because that person at that moment, even after detox, is still confused, because the body has to take time to recover, so that the brain, at least, it comes back to our level. That's why treatment takes a long time. And as at the retreat, we have a minimum of 90 days, but it can take longer depending on the substance and how long the person has used. I can give an example of a patient who took over 2 months. He's on medication. He's under psychiatric review. He's under counseling, for the person at least to get what is called an insight, where you can have a conversation of, hello, how are you? I'm good. My name is so and so. People forget their names. People even think they're somebody else. You hear, I'm Bob Marley's brother, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the time, it's a brief confusion, which is also at times a sign of psychiatric condition that is temporary, which is basically, what is it called? It's called substance-induced psychosis. A guy is psychotic, not because they have a mental illness, but because they've used substance for the brain to get to level where they have to have, like, be treated for a mental illness for a period of time. Then the drug is going to be weaned off slowly, the medication for getting back to us. Then maybe it's a month and a half down the lane. That's when the real counseling work or the psychological work starts. So confusion, I have to put for you a disclaimer, parents, because confusion may not necessarily mean that the person is abusing substance. I'm only looking at the substance abuse angle. Let's be careful. Without proper drug tests, you cannot assume your child is abusing drugs because they are confused. Find out, why are they confused? What has changed? The body chemistry. You went to the doctors the other day, the person was sick, they were given a medication, it caused them confusion. The person is running a high temperature because they're sick, it's causing confusion. So confusion can be caused by things that are way not about drug abuse, but commonly in my field, I see a lot of it in drug abuse and people with other co-occurring disorders. So if your child is confused, at temperature, the person may be dehydrated, and I stand to be corrected. I know if you are dehydrated for a long period of time, temperature is high, you can be in a confused state, but it's only a brief state. When a person is in a confused state because of substance abuse, it's recurring and continuous. So when your child is confused or is not being able to make decisions, first of all, be near them, find out what's new, what has changed. Because for you to notice that a child is confused, something has changed. Before there's a change, I think if they're confused, it's a long time ago. Now we're going to discuss when to seek help, which I think will be addressed later. Back to you, Anne.
Thank you so much. And just listening to you, what comes into my mind is comes to rehabilitation, especially when you talk about substance-related rehabilitation. Does the society take it positively? Does it take it negatively? Probably you can just shed some light and share with us the advantages of taking our children when we notice they need that particular professional help to the rehab centers in good time, as opposed to waiting till the circumstance has actually deteriorated.
Okay, thank you, Anne. One or two things come in. As a parent, there are 2 or 3 things that you need to note. You need to be in your child's life. That's a thing you need to note, and that's not a choice. It's a God-given right and responsibility. You're responsible for your children. So the reason sometimes addiction goes too far until it leads to some of these things, rehabilitation is a good thing. What happens in Kenya, it's always been perceived pale ni pahali pa watu wazimu, only the insane go there, ama the extreme addicts go there. 1 or 2 things I'll tell you here. Once you notice that your child has an issue, there are 2 things you can do. You don't just force them to rehabilitation. 1 or 2, you can go to a psychiatrist or just see a counselor. A counselor will do a simple assessment. A psychologist will do a simple assessment and tell you, okay, this person they'll apply their education and the clinical tests to tell you this person may have this problem A, B, C, D. We don't assume. But the earlier the better. The earlier you take the person for professional care, the better, because before it's not advanced, it takes less time to revert back to the normal. It's easier to rehabilitate a person who's starting, and it's easier to even caution and counsel the person not to get to the rehabilitation level if they seek professional help earlier. Psychologists are there. We have a lot of psychologists. They are there. Look for them, call them up. I've seen ABCD. Let the person assess you. They'll tell you, huyu ni kucheza na cheza, or this is a serious condition. Hii ni utukutu, or something like that. Because some of those things, the importance of rehabilitation and mental health in Kenya at the moment, as I proceed, has moved to a certain level. We are more aware. Us as a professionals, we are doing a lot of work, we're doing a lot of promotions to promote mental health. You remember, even it's gotten up to the president now knowing, okay, we need to deal with this. So, rehabilitation, the earlier you do it, the better. And the earlier you seek professional help, that may not necessarily mean institutionalization like in a rehab center, the better it is for you, your family, and your kids. And I'll tell you the truth, it's a costly affair. Rehabilitation is a costly affair. So the earlier you get your person professional help, the better. But what I believe, I've been in the field long enough to know that however bad it may seem, nobody is beyond redemption. I believe in that, and that's why I work in this field. Even with my degree, that's why I work in this field. I will have done some other things with my psychology degree. But I have a passion for rehabilitation because I have redeemed several people through the process. Not personally, but recommending rehabilitation, and people have become back the useful people in society. If a person does not seek treatment early enough, they get to a point where they are no longer useful to society or productive to society. Now that's when they become troublesome. When somebody is drinking or using a substances and they are functioning, people don't care. They think, he's wealthy, he's successful, he can afford to do so. But note the medical and psychological effects of your substance abuse. And the worst thing that we don't know as parents, this now becomes intergenerational. I'm using substances, my kids are seen using substances, they've seen my behaviors, my son would want to copy who I am. So the earlier you get the substances out of the family, the better, before it becomes hereditary. Because it can be genetic heredity because of exposure, or psychological or sociological, because that's how I was brought up. I was brought up with men drinking. I need to be a man. So what I need to say to answer your question, the earlier the better. If you see the signs and symptoms of somebody that your child is using substances, the earlier the better. And don't fear. We can refer you to a place where you can afford. You can seek early counseling, early psychological effects, and the psychological help, and the person may not need to be institutionalized in a rehabilitation center for recovery. Back to you, Anne. I don't want to take most of your time.
Thank you so much. And as you are speaking, it just brought to my attention a few incidences where I've seen One I saw in college. There was a friend of mine who grew up in an environment where they used to drink a lot. And she reacted the opposite side. She decided she'll never touch a drink. And anybody who was drinking, she would actually keep off. So it worked for her. But now on the flip side, the latest incident is a scenario where, because the parent was drinking and abusive, actually the son drinks, uses these illegal drugs, and is very abusive, and is just a menace to society. So I get what you're saying, and as parents, actually, we need to be careful in terms of what are we modeling for our children. We might think that glass of wine in the house is actually okay, but what are we communicating to our children? And probably, Collins, I just want to bring you in from a school environment. What are some of the things you see that could actually point to aspects of substance abuse, aspects of the environment within which the kids are growing up, and the impact that it might have in the context of the discussion we are having?
Thank you very much, Anne. Now, I have had a chance of teaching 844, which is now changing to another system, CBC. And also, I've gotten a chance of coming to the international curriculum and teaching in Kenya and Rwanda. And the youth everywhere are the same. The children are the same. All these things that we're discussing affect all of them. Now, in a school setup, I'll give you an example of what I have experienced and seen. There was one time we had a student who used to walk up and down at night. When others go to sleep at around 10, by around 11, the kid is out and walking around the school. So at first, we didn't understand what was wrong. We even had to look for the guards to make sure that the kid is in the dorm throughout. About 2-3 days, the same thing happening, we dug deeper and found out that the kid was addicted, but was not able to get what he needed. So in such a case, definitely informing the parents and following the due process, and actually ended up being admitted into a rehabilitation center. And it turned out okay, they were saved from the situation. So that is a very big tell sign that you can say this one is a problem. But not all the students who do not sleep at night are addicts. So we don't have to brand them in that manner. It can be another issue. Now, other things that in school we see, and there are tell signs. I'm not saying these are the symptoms, and when a teacher sees this, you say this one is using drugs. But these are some of the things that you can use as indicators to dig deeper. You look at the academic performance. How is it moving? If it was up and then it starts coming down drastically, there must be a problem. It can be a problem that will lead to drug abuse, or it can be drug abuse that is bringing about the academic performance. For example, there was one case I remember vividly in Rwanda. A student came in, was getting all A's until one specific exam, he dropped and got an E. So everyone was worried, and we got shocked. What happened? So after a few investigations here and there and talking to the student, we found out that during the exam period, the kid had been introduced to using substances. I think at that point it was weed, bangi. So he was not himself doing the exams. So everything was blank throughout the entire time. So in that situation, the kid was also saved because it was caught early. He was just being introduced, an A student dropping all the way to an E. That was red flags. Other things that you can look at is also the social pattern. Is the social trend the same throughout? Because a student who's going to use substance will always want to isolate him or herself and be with a clique of those who use the same substance. Now, let us not brand introverts with the same manner, because there are some students who do not like crowds. Personally, when I was a student, I didn't like hanging out with a lot of people. So I'd choose 2 or 3 friends and hang out with them. But I can confirm I was not using substances. But if you connect the social trend and someone excluding themselves, then as a teacher, you can probe into it. As a parent, also, you can watch out. Which clique is my child working with at home? Are they the right people? And my cousin, who happens to have dreads, is telling me to confirm that not all people with dreadlocks use substances. So it's not that when you see a parent sees a child with dreadlocks working with their child, you want to shun them away. No. There are some characteristics that, as a parent, your instincts will definitely tell you who you. This is bad news. So you start digging deeper, and then lastly, parents who have teenagers, you should expect at some point breakdown of communication, change in the way of communication, but you should watch how the breakage is coming and the change in communication. It will tell you a lot. A kid who is young will always tell you things as a parent. And then as they get older, they're going to reserve most of their comments and will tell you 1 or 2 things at given points. So if you see that the information is still coming, well and good. But if you see everything has been shut off, then as a parent, as a teacher, try and probe. Be the friend. Don't go in as an authority. Just try and look at where the problem might be. It can be any other issue, not only drugs, but you'll be able to pick it early. And as the wise man or wahenga walivyosema, it's better to prevent than to cure. In Swahili ni mzuri kuziba ufa kuliko kujenga kuta. I hope my Swahili was not badly off. Back to you, Anne. Anne, your mic is mute.
Sorry, I was just saying that one of the things that your thoughts reminded me of was the issue of academic days. And at a personal level, when I go for academic days, I just don't want to know the academic part alone. I also want to know the social aspect of my child in school, because I want to correlate how they behave within the school environment and how they behave at home. So probably just to echo the thoughts from Collins is, as parents, we need to have a good relationship with the teacher so that we have an understanding of both, because different environments bring out different traits in our children. Similarly for us, probably the way I behave at home is not the same way I'll behave in a different environment. So it's good just to have that understanding to be able to see then how do I interact with this child. And where I'm unable to interact, can I bring in the teacher, because we have a good rapport, can I bring in the teacher to assist in terms of talking to this child or providing guidance where the child sees me as the obstacle? So thank you so much for sharing that, Collins. And bringing us to the end of the show is our last question. When do we seek for professional assistance? As a parent, as a teacher, when is it ripe for me to say this child needs to be assisted in a professional way? Between Alex and Rachel, who wants to go first? Okay, Rachel, you can go first.
Okay. And before I answer that, it's just like I'm liking how we are integrating. Like we started this session purely talking about the medical part of confusion, but we are seeing the relevance of our own environments in terms of confusion. It's very important because that's what we see in the clinic. Like when you see a child is confused or having some of the symptoms that you have just talked, we are quick to rush to the hospital and then expect every answer or every remedy to come from the hospital, yet the environment is enabling the condition to still prevail. So it's very important in anything, not only in confusion, like whenever someone has something that is ailing them, it's always good to look at the environment, because even if medication can be found, how long the person is on medication, whether the person goes back to having that same condition is pretty much dependent on the environment. If someone has even like a migraine, a very serious form of headache, and they go for the test, the fluid, the CSF fluid is removed, they're seen they have certain infections and they're treated. If they go to the same environment that is not supporting their recovery, then they are likely not to recover at all. So it's very important to see the environment where the person is or the youth is in tandem to whatever medical symptoms that they're having. Now, to answer your question on what do we do? So I'll first of all tap into what Colin said, is that it's normal, first of all, for youth to seem confused, especially when they do something that is contrary to what is expected of them. And part of this happens because like I said, the brain is developing, the decision-making parts, the reasoning parts, the planning parts of the brain haven't matured yet, and yet the rewarding systems, the system of the brain that are related to emotions, they are fully developed. So you can sit with the child right now and tell them like, when you have sex with boys, you will get pregnant. So it's either use condoms or you abstain. If you go to a bar and your friends are drinking, you're likely to drink alcohol. So how about you stay off? You can sit down with the child and tell them this. And then the next thing you're seeing them, they are actually drunk. They are probably pregnant. They are probably exhibiting symptoms of an STI. And you wonder, inaingilia hapa, inatokea hapa. That's the most common phrase that happens. It's just that for the youth, they are more likely to act emotionally. As much as you can sit here with someone and tell them this and this is bad to do, they will go and act emotionally because the parts that they are supposed to reason out with, they're not fully developed. But the emotional parts in terms of what are the friends doing, what is fun doing, are fully developed, and they are more likely to go into things that are more rewarding. So one thing to do is probably check on the peers that they have and advise them on having the right peers that support the same ideals that they would like to have if they interacted with them, or if they were pressurized to do whatever they do. And another thing is also having mentors. And as a parent, you're a mentor to this child. Mentors, and not just mentor who can mentor at you once a month or twice a month, more frequent, because they need that frequent interaction. Another thing is probably engaging in exercises or any other form of activity that is healthy. That also helps. And for the parents and the caregivers, the environment is very important. Like I said about brain development and the environment has to be very loving and supportive. You can't expect that you're telling the child like when you're told to do this, please don't do this. And for you, when your friends come and tell you have already planned this whole day to do this, the child afnaambia pedhe rafiki yangu amecall amesema mi twende pahali. They learn from what they see in their environment, and they're more likely to do what you do as well. As much as you can be privy to emotions and react emotionally, that's the same way to a teenager, and now like to a higher extent, because they are more emotional than they're more emotional, they're more likely to reason out and make decisions on their own. So that is, and some other things that you can do when you realize someone's confused. Like we say, some of the confusion symptoms can come because maybe, like Alex said, someone is dehydrated. So taking plenty of fluids, getting enough sleep, and getting enough sleep where there is no carbon monoxide, like hakuna jiko around, a stress-free environment, that helps in mitigating or taking care of symptoms of confusion. And then how do you know that now this one you need to see a doctor? When you have extreme symptoms of those confusions that we have talked about. For example, someone has dizziness. Someone is seeing things that are not there. Someone is hearing things that, or probably even sometimes feeling like something in amtembelea and it's not there. When probably someone is speaking in slurred speech or mumbling things that do not make sense. They have concentration problems, or it seems their focus is not pretty okay. And even probably when they wake up, they are still groggy, they can't wake up fully. And it's very important to know that adolescents in that period, they are more likely to sleep for a very long time. And it's actually good because that's the time their brain develops when they are asleep. So it's very important to notice what is being groggy and what is actually just a normal lengthy sleep. So when they have extreme confusion symptoms, that is time to seek a doctor. And and as much as we may say, like, it's very important to observe, some of the extreme conditions can occur suddenly. Like when someone may start having delirium, like just speaking in slurred speech, it can be just a sudden mental form of confusion. That one needs to go and see a doctor. So it's not even about the length, it's about the severity of those confusion symptoms. And once that happens, then it's important to go see a doctor. And we have this culture in Africa that ukiona mtoto wako anafanya hii, kwanza unaulizia around nani mwingine anaona hii, so that you can gauge whether this one is so serious to go to the doctor or not. Please, when you see extreme confusion problems, whether you have someone else has exhibited them or not, it's always important to seek a doctor. Whether the symptoms are the same or not, it's not like they have the same condition. Maybe this one is having confused symptoms because they have addiction. This other one has a brain trauma. This other one just has an environment that is not supportive. So it's always important to personalize. In medicine, we say every case we personalize it. We don't see it as if we have seen other people. We personalize it in terms of we see it as a case in itself and we treat it as itself, because someone can have the same symptoms, but they are because of different things. So always seek medical attention for that. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Now coming to you, Alex. What in your view would be the turning point where, as a parent or as a teacher, I would want to point out that we need to seek for professional help?
Seeking professional help. Thank you, Anne. Seeking professional help. I'm with Rachel here, and seeking professional help from my point of view, I'll say this. You are in the life of this person, of your loved one, child, sister, brother. You're in that life. That's the first step. If you're in that life, you know their history, medical, psychological, and behavioral. How you determine it's time to seek help is when you note that this now is not normal for Alex. This is not normal for Rachel. This is normal for Collins. I know Collins, this is not normal for that. Severity, I agree. But if in the life of your child, teenagers, they have their behaviors and that's expected. But in terms of confusion, it can be severe. And the sad thing I'll tell you is the onset of some of those medical conditions are in between teenage and young adulthood. That's when you'll be able to diagnose those things. If it's noticed earlier, the better. Like a condition like ADHD, you may notice hyperactivity in your kid, get concerned, and just...
Sorry, Alex, what is ADHD? You are using jargon.
Okay, now again, professional. Okay, like in the case of attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which hapa watu wanasemanga mtoto wangu ni hyper. Okay, mtoto wangu ni hyper. What happens there is that you observe your child from younghood. If you take them for professional help earlier, the more productive life they'll have. Because that one, they got it biologically or from other conditions during pregnancy or something like that. The earlier the better. So about seeking professional help, sorry for the jargon, the earlier the better. Once you notice change in physical, cognitive, which is mental, and behavioral, and how they socialize, see, do a simple and do seek medical help. That's one, I'll tell you the truth. The earlier the better, and the easier it is for you to deal with whatever is happening when it comes to seeking professional help. From my perspective, from my addiction background, I'll tell you this. There are simple tests like KG, which we are not going to get into that, which you can do by observing your child and seeing, like behavioral changes, social group withdrawal of a sudden from a very person who was normally like that can raise the flag. But what you need to do, I'll agree with everybody, what everybody is saying. Don't be a person to label other people. Let the professionals do it. Like when I get a cold, siendi kwa pharmacy, may I go to that hospital, whatever the clinician earn their money, and at least you're safer than ever. So when it comes from my area of addiction and all that, in relation to confusion, once you see the extreme, once you see there's no time to observe. Mtoto anaweza kualianguka kagongwa kichwa, and you're trying to observe. Kama ukimuuliza umegongwa, the person doesn't know because there's a state of confusion. That one, rush to hospital. It doesn't matter what time it is. It's your child, it's your brother, it's your sister, it's your parent, it's your wife. Take them to hospital. After all these days, we have NHIF that's really, really helping us out in some of these things. So I'll say that hii mambo ya kufanya uganga ya nyumbani, wachaneni nayo. Let's just go and do that. Yeah, symptoms like for cold and flu, you can have your fruits for vitamin C and stuff. But at the end of the day, you feel, hey, imezidi, go to hospital. Especially now in this COVID era, people are even refusing to go for their normal clinics. Maybe a person is diabetic, a person is hypertensive, wanakataa kwenda wakikugopa kupata corona huko. I'm sorry to say so. You'll fall down and die. People will say it's corona na umeangushwa na high blood pressure. You'll fall down because you've not gone for a regular clinic. So my appeal is that let's do what is right for ourselves, our children, our relatives, people under our care. Because me, sometimes like over a week, I have about 40 people under my care. I have to observe all those. When it comes to that, I tell the boss, no, we are not saving costs here. This person needs this kind of attention. You may do your reports every day and you insist, and people, they get the help. And that's where you observe, even after you've taken somebody from hospital, you still observe your child or whoever it is, if they've improved. Then even if they've improved, if you're told to go for a review, go for the review. Let the doctor do their part. Let the psychiatrist do their part. I'm a psychologist. I'll say, okay, A, B, C, D, yes, I have noticed this, but what I'll tell you, I can't prescribe drugs. That's not in my profession. Go to Dr. So-and-so, they'll subscribe to, they'll know what best fits your child. Then they'll give you that, and after that, your child will have maybe problem and a normal life. So here in mental health, the awareness, and I know we're running out of time, so I'll just say, let us just take it like a first aid measure. Emergency case, let it be emergency. Like not to take the smaller cases to take them to hospital all the time, and also observe and let us keep the review dates. And that's all. Observe they're taking the medication if they were given medication. Thank you. Back to you, Anne.
Wow, thank you. And you know, just listening to you, it is the small things that actually matter. Observing your child, getting to know your child, and observing if there is medication, taking it as per the way it has been prescribed. If you need to go for review, going back for the review. So thank you so much. And as you pointed out, we are running out of time. So I will take this time and probably start with you, Rachel, just your closing remarks. Having gone through this discussion, and I know it's broad, we can't exhaust everything, but the context of what we've spoken about, what is your parting shot to the youth and to the parents?
Okay. Thank you. I think this, first of all, when we talk about confusion, and especially as the youth listen to these, I'm sure or I've found out like youths tend to get a wider understanding of themselves. And I hope this has been the case with this particular session, that first of all, there's no size that fits all, that everyone is different. And if you have been in a stage where you describe yourself as confused, it's not necessarily a medical problem. It can be, but not necessarily. And some things you can do with yourself that can mitigate the problem. And also going on what you guys discussed last week, it's not always a bad thing to be confused or to be in a place where you're not very sure about what you're doing or where you're going in life. It's pretty normal and it's very good because it makes you hesitate and think through what you're supposed to do. So try as much as possible to be relaxed, be stress-free, eat well, get your exercises done daily. Water is very important on a daily basis. Get enough rest. Those are some of the things that you can do on yourself that can mitigate confusion. In the extreme states, know that there is help, there is medication, and there's no hospital you can go to with confusion symptoms that they really don't know what to do with you. So you can get help. And I know people are not probably sometimes, especially with this COVID era, like Alex said, likely to go to hospital for anything that they feel is not unwell, but it's always good to get help very fast. Some of those confusion symptoms can even be a stroke that can just um, that can make you that can actually end your life. So it's very important. Don't take this for granted. Whenever you have extreme things, whether there's corona or not, please do seek medical help. And parents, please provide a supportive and loving environment. Kusema kwa Kiswahili, echoing Collins, kikulacho kinguoni mwako. So sometimes parents, probably the reason why their child is acting differently, it's probably because of you. So, like the good book says, remove the plank from your eye before you remove the splinter from your neighbor's eye. So look at yourself. Is there anything within in the environment you're providing or yourself that is causing your child to act the way they're acting? Then if there isn't, then please go ahead and now address your child. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rachel. Alex, your parting shot.
Sorry, we have to go, but yeah, my parting shot. Okay, teenagers and parents, I tell you this, and teachers and moderators, it was a nice one. Okay, my parting shot in this case will be, nobody is beyond redemption. Believe me that. I've seen the ones who seem to have been beyond, redeemed, and live fruitful lives. Nobody is beyond redemption. And also know your environment, know your parents, make your choices based, as a teenager, make your choices based on what you know is right, not necessarily what you've been socialized to be the norm. The normal in your neighborhood, like I liked your example of the lady who went the other way around because she's from a place where they were drinking all the time. Just because it's done in your neighborhood a lot doesn't mean it is normal. So I'm telling you, do what is right, which you know is going to be right for you, but not necessarily what is happening in the environment. So if you're a teenager, you're in school, this is how you've been brought up by your parents. This is what you know is right according to church. Yes, like this one here, you see, you don't know what Baba is doing. So at the end of the day, I'll tell you, it's been a nice one. I look forward to more Anne Wafula, and let's take care of our children because they're our future, not because they'll take care of us, because it's the right thing and God-given right thing to do. And let me tell you the truth, nobody is beyond redemption. And once you care for somebody, whether child, wife, neighbor, with your skill, your God-given skill or what you studied, I'm telling you, it pays tenfold. I am a product of that. Discussion for another day. I have seen being faithful to God and helping people, how it comes back, and I am able to achieve things that I would not have dreamt I would have achieved. So let's kick out this individualistic culture that we've received from the West, and let's be the African communal person. And with that, I'll say, care for yourself, care for your loved ones, and also care for the people in your surrounding. After all, mtoto si wako, ni wa jamii.
Wow, that's powerful. And I like the correlation with the traditional setup where everybody would actually look out for everybody. But as you said, we are losing that. Collins, you're parting short, and probably also just slightly talk about how the teacher-parent relationship can be strengthened to help us to be able to communicate on the issues of confusion and related matters, to be able to help our kids. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anne. Alex would really make a very, very nice teacher because he's using real life examples. I like that. The interaction between the teacher and the parent is very, very key. And it is a two-way traffic that needs to be always constantly having traffic. The teacher should be communicating with the parent, and the parent should be communicating with the teacher in this manner, where the teacher is asking how the student is at home, and the parent is asking how the learner is at school. Because we know some students might behave differently at home and in school. Now, the key thing in all this is that ignorance will lead to lack of understanding, and that lack of understanding will cause confusion. Now, confusion today, we were looking at it in terms of the medical side, but allow me to bring the other side that we handled last time. Now, a parent not understanding the student, not understanding his or her child, will get confused on how to handle the child and will exert the wrong pressure. And that is why it is important for the teacher and the parent to always be in communication throughout the life of the learner. Now, my parting shot for the youth today is very simple, and I'd like to connect a few topics that we've discussed so far. Last week, I said it's all about from confusion to conclusion. Today, I'd like to say ignorance, lack of self-awareness will be equals to confusion. And the remedy is very easy. Learn and learn what you don't need, relearn what you need, and life will be okay. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anne.
Thank you very much, Collins. From my part, I'd like to just highlight the issue of confusion from last week's session, being that it can be something positive if we use it, if we look at it from that context. Confusion that is caused because of lack of information or less information can be a learning opportunity for us. But now the confusion that comes about because of the other sides, the confusion that is negative, it's something that we need to look out for. And as we have stated today, because today we're looking at it from a medical perspective and the professional interventions that are available, please let's not hesitate. Let us take the relevant steps at the right time so that we might be able to help our children to get the right attention, to get the right treatment if there is need for that. And as a society, I'd like to just pose a challenge to us as a society. This issue of individualism, where kids are involved, let's see how we can help one another. Because I would feel so bad when I see somebody my daughter's age doing a wrong thing, and because si mtoto wangu, nasema hiyo ni shauri yake na wazazi wake. Let us see how we can help each other, because at the end of the day, huyu mtoto unalenga kusaidia, ndiye atakuja tu kwako, ama you know, life can be ironic, ndiye ataoa mtoto wako. Then how do you deal with that, you know? So let us do the best that we can do. Let us help where we can help. If I cannot talk to the child directly, can I find ways of talking to the parents? And as parents, I know some of us have an attitude. Mtu akija kukuongelesha kwambia, I saw your child doing ABCD, unasema mind your own business. Let us find ways of accommodating each other so that at the end of the day, we are able to raise a society. We are able to raise actually kids who can be leaders of tomorrow, kids who can take responsibility, kids whom we are proud to associate with. And with that, we come to the end of our session. Thank you so much for tuning in. This concludes the session on self-awareness. All the topics we've been discussing about boil down to self-awareness. How well do I know myself? What do I know in terms of my strengths, my weaknesses? How do I address my weaknesses? How do I leverage on my strengths? How do I use my strengths to be able to tap into the opportunities that are there? So next week, we are going to look at a different thematic area. We'll be looking at matters to do with finances, because I know that is also another challenge. We are at home, we are short of money. And some of us are being creative and creative in the wrong way. So we will be exploring matters to do with money at this challenging time. So with that, I wish you a lovely weekend. And to Rachel and Alex, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate your thoughts. Collins, as usual, thank you. You always bring a punch. And to our audience, thanks for taking the time. I know many will be joining in later. You'll get the recorded session of this particular discussion. So let's all have a lovely weekend. Toto, nice joining us, our young panelist. And you know, he or she will follow your footsteps, Alex. So we are glad to have them on board as our young panelists. Otherwise, do have a lovely weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.